only place for everything Vikings. 6, 1, 2, Vikings.
Welcome back to the 612 Vikings podcast. I am Dustin with Drew and a special guest in Sean Kenner. Sean, if you want to introduce yourself for the people that don't know you, and we'll get right into this.
What's up, guys? Pleasure to be back. It's always good talking Vikings football, but usually catch me on Twitter at SK_NFL. Also the creator of Purple and Scold Media, so we like pushing content on over there. Even in the off season, it's still slow, but there's always something to talk about on Vikings or Vikings Twitter per se. So yeah, man, just love talking Vikings. Always a pleasure to be here with you guys. Let's get it rolling, man.
Awesome. Yeah, you're in the perfect place to talk some Vikings. And, we try to make this at least somewhat weekly, talk about some Vikings here. And for those of you that are listening or watching, we're going to try to get Sean on here every Monday. And, if he likes it that much, we can get him on a little bit more too and get him more involved with this. And as always, it's me and Drew the rest of the week too. So, yeah, we are your source for some Vikings news. So let's get right into this. As you guys know, we're in pretty much the dead of the offseason, the end of June. We got nothing much Vikings-related newsworthy going on. Fortunately or unfortunately, that's the case. So we're going to have some fun today. We're going to name our Mount Rushmore of Vikings players and then get into a little bit of what Chris Sims is saying about his quarterback countdown, and then some surprise roster cuts as well. So with that, we will get into our Mount Rushmore of Vikings players, past, present, and future. If anybody has any future players in there, we'll see. So, Sean, let's start with you. Who do you have on your Mount Rushmore of Vikings players?
Well, it's not too far from what was kind of released. What was it this morning of the top 4? I still have Fran Tarkenton on there. I still have Adrian Peterson. I still have Alan Page. I think those are surefire guys to be on that Mount Rushmore. Now, Chris Carter was the 4th one on there, and it's hard to argue against Chris Carter. But I got to go Moss, and that may be a little bit biased on my part because he's the reason why I am a Vikings fan. So it would almost be blasphemous for me not to put him on my Mount Rushmore. So Fran Tarkenton, Randy Moss, Adrian Peterson, and Alan Page are my Mount Rushmore for the Minnesota Vikings.
Okay, yeah, I think the graphic was from Vikings, or not Vikings, NFL Throwback. They had Alan Page, Adrian Peterson, Fran Tarkenton, and Chris Carter on there, which, it's not a bad list, but I think there's definitely some guys that, could be added in there too. But yeah, Drew, who do you have on your Mount Rushmore there?
So my first one is going to be Fran Tarkenton for the fact that he was pretty much one of the first scrambling quarterbacks in the modern era. The second one I had was Alan Page, who was the first defensive MVP in NFL history. And the third one is, I'm not even going to change it because I think the NFL throwbacks hit it for me, is Chris Carter. So my reason for that is I looked at it more, Chris Carter did more for the franchise of the Vikings than Randy Moss did, because Randy Moss only played for the Vikings for 5-6 years, where he had that short little stint in 2009 as well. But I think Chris Carter, as a player in the Vikings organization, did more statistically than Randy Moss did, because he's the receptions leader, the yards leader, the touchdown leader. So that's why I have him there. But my fourth and final guy, I'm actually going to change it up. I originally had Adrian Peterson, but I'm going to go with Randall McDaniel at number 4.
Oh, wow.
Because,
okay.
Yeah,
Curveball.
I'm changing it up. Yeah, I'm going to change it up because I feel like it's kind of boring to go chalk. So I'm gonna switch it to Randall McDaniel, the 7-time All-Pro, first team All-Pro to be exact. So one of the greatest guards, if not the greatest guard in NFL history. So, and like I said, O-line doesn't really get a lot of love. They're usually, some people take it for granted. So I'm gonna give O-line some love and Randall McDaniel.
Yeah, Drew, like you said, all offensive linemen they're just not a sexy position. Nobody really gives them the recognition that they deserve, especially for Mount Rushmore of like players, whether that's, on any team really. But yeah, that's a pretty good list too. You got some very recognizable guys in there as well. But for me, I'd probably go Moss, Randy Moss. You know, a guy that probably has changed the game for wide receivers at least. When he came into the league, I know his stints with the Vikings, you know, didn't last as long as Chris Carter and you know all those other guys too. But I have Fran Tarkenton on there, you know, a guy that changed the quarterback play for the NFL. You know, one of the first scrambling quarterbacks in the NFL. Definitely, like I said, changed the NFL, you know, in the long run and possibly forever. Um, John Randall is my third guy on there. You know, not a lot of Vikings fans I feel like would put John Randall on there. You know, whereas the graphic had Alan Page. Alan Page is a really good, you know, very good defensive guy. But I feel like John Randall, just a high motor guy. You know, a monster on the field. You know, not taking that away from Alan Page, but you know, just a guy. You know, I see him on Twitter all the time going golfing. You know, I would love to join John Randall in golf, just not on the gridiron. You know, two different places there. But my fourth guy, I would definitely add Adrian Peterson. You know, a guy that also has changed the running back game as well. Just a brute force on the gridiron. You know, I wish he wasn't an all around back, but you know, still a very dominant guy. And you know, three offensive pieces in there, one defensive piece. So yeah, I think those are pretty good lists. Yeah, can't go wrong with any of those guys, to be honest.
Yeah. And one guy you got to consider in this too is Harrison Smith. And I think
Yeah.
he's a lot closer than what people may think he is because he's still playing. So I know a lot of people, when they look at these Mount Rushmores, they may not consider guys that are still out there and playing the game. And I mean, Harrison Smith, outside of him putting up Hall of Fame numbers on the field, he's been a Hall of Fame Viking off of the field, whether that be taking pay cuts, not this year, but also last year, to remain on the Minnesota Vikings. So he's showing you right now he wants to remain a Minnesota Viking and he wants to retire a Minnesota Viking. This may be Harrison Smith's last year. So I mean, it's hard to argue not putting him up there. Now, he may not have the accolades like a Randy Moss or obviously a Fran Tarkenton, who I think when you guys mentioned earlier, he revolutionized the quarterback position. So those are guys that are hard to top that you can squeeze Harrison Smith in there at. But I think he's an honorable mention, and he still has time to get on that Mount Rushmore. And Justin Jefferson's not too far. I mean, I know we're really young into his career, but he puts another 3 strong years together. We may be talking about Justin Jefferson being on the Vikings Mount Rushmore.
Yeah,
And,
for sure. I think there's a lot of younger people too that will add Jefferson, you know, to that. But you know, I think all time, you know, Jefferson, I think will be there someday. He's on the right track for sure. And then for Harrison Smith, you know, if you're in the same conversation, pretty much stat wise as Troy Polamalu, I think you're definitely doing something right. And you know, I think he will definitely be in there for some Vikings fans as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, Sean brought up safety, and another guy who also played safety that wore number 22 that doesn't get a lot of love, and frankly, some of it see it as a unbreakable record is Paul Krause with the 81 career interceptions, which nobody in their nobody on the current NFL level is even close to touching it. And I don't even know if this is one that'll even be touched because of how dramatically the quarterback position has improved over the decades, but. Another guy, too, I kind of want to throw in there is Chris Dolman, rest in peace. But that guy is, you know, at his time was one of the all-time sack leaders. I think he was the all-time sack leader at his time. You know, and then eventually got, you know, replaced by Reggie White and, you know, Bruce Smith and all those guys following him. But, you know, that's another guy I feel like deserves a little shout out too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do want to add to the Paul Krause thing is you said that it's an untouchable record. Yeah, the current players right now, the only one that's close, put air quotes here, close to 81 interceptions is Patrick Peterson with 36. And I don't know about you guys, but he's definitely going to have what, 5 to 10 years of having 10 interceptions. So in a year. So I don't know. It's definitely an untouchable record at this point.
Yeah. I think if anyone were to even be close for me, it might be Trayvon Diggs down in Dallas because he had 10 interceptions like 2 years ago. But I mean, he's still young where he could try to get it, but he would have to have like 4 seasons of 10 interceptions seasons. So, but like I said, I think it's an unbreakable record. But we'll see how things play out. A lot of people say some certain records were unbreakable and they got broken. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. So with that said, time for our next fun topic to talk about is Chris Sims' top 40 QB countdown. Now, this is interesting because he kind of has this in, little bins, I guess you want to call it. And, I'll just say this now. 2 Vikings players are in the top, we'll say 33 here, hint, hint, nudge, nudge here. But, okay, number 1, he has legendary. All right, it's kind of cut off here, but legendary. There's only one person in there, Patrick Mahomes. All right, so I'll kind of go through the list here, and then we can kind of discuss, after each bin, and just kind of go from there. So Patrick Mahomes, I feel like not much needs to be said about legendary. Does anybody need to be added to that bin? Currently?
No,
No,
not
okay.
currently playing. No.
Yeah.
Okay,
No.
so we're fine with Patrick Mahomes in that bin right now. The next one is a unicorn emoji. I guess whatever you want that to mean. He has Josh Allen and Joe Burrow in there. What do we think of that?
Can I rant a little bit now?
You can rant. Do it.
I told you
I'll
I was
let
going to
you.
rant. I am tired of seeing Josh Allen as the number 2 ranked quarterback in the entire league. We gave not just Vikings fans, but the entire league and the entire NFL fan base gave, and I'm not comparing Kirk Cousins to Josh Allen, but they gave Kirk Cousins the worst time or the worst kind of attention when it came to performing in clutch moments. Josh Allen's biggest, you guys want to know what Josh Allen's biggest clutch moment is? Is when he scored with 13 seconds left, and then Patrick Mahomes went down and tied up the game. And they ended up winning in overtime. That's Josh Allen's biggest clutch time moment. If you look at any close game where it came down to the last possession where Josh Allen had the ball in his hands to win the game, guess what happens? He turns the ball over. Every time. Every single time. So to have Josh Allen as your number 2 rated quarterback in the entire NFL with absolutely no success when it comes to, he has a few playoff wins. I give him credit. He's lost to Patrick Mahomes a few times, which, I mean, if you want to brag about that, so be it. But you haven't done anything to prove yourself to say, I've been to a Super Bowl. I've beat Patrick Mahomes. I've done this. I've done that to be, quote unquote, a unicorn or be the second best quarterback in the league. Joe Burrow should obviously be above Josh Allen. I would put, if we're taking out the injury aspect of things, which obviously Matthew Stafford is at the end of his career. He's banged up. I mean, he has a bad back, it seems like, every single year. I would put Matthew Stafford ahead of him. Justin Herbert, I can't necessarily, because then I would be contradicting myself here as far as not having any postseason success or not necessarily having a clutch moment or a big clutch moment in a huge game per se. Mm-hmm. So Josh Allen should not be the second best quarterback. 3 or 4 maybe. I may be ranting too much to drop him only a couple spots, but to call him a unicorn and how these national media pundits kind of pump him up to make it seem like it's Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen, the 2 best quarterbacks in the league. This is the next generation of Peyton Manning versus Tom Brady. No, it's not. Josh Allen does not compare to Tom Brady, does not compare to Peyton Manning. He's not on that level. He hasn't shown he's on that level. When it comes to crunch time, he always finds the way to screw it up and turn the ball over. We saw it firsthand when Minnesota went to Buffalo. They were up 27-10, had a chance to put it away. You're inside the 10-yard line, and you throw it right to Patrick Peterson. And on top of that, we go into overtime. You have a chance to win it, and guess what? You throw it right to Patrick Peterson again. So I don't want to hear anything about Josh Allen being this great, amazing unicorn type of quarterback. I don't see it.
And kind of add on to your point there too is all they had to do is not fumble inside the 1. They fumbled inside the 1.
I didn't even mention that part.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you want to blame the center quarterback for that fiasco, but it's still one of those moments where the quarterback at the end of the day is going to get the most flack for it. And,
Yep.
Jaron Hall in his pre-draft interview said I got to make that play because I'm the field general. I'm the guy that runs this offense. I'm that second coach on the field. So I've got to find a way to make it better. And, and like I said, if you want to blame that and make that, I mean, that's kind of like the face of that game. But, they also got, like you said, they got that second chance to put the game away and win it because they held them to a field goal even with 12 guys on the field too. So
They had three chances. Josh Allen had three chances to win that game, and one of them was just running a QB sneak, and he couldn't do it.
Can't do it. No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, another guy. Another guy. I feel like should be on the unicorn list, but I feel like he's very much slandered amongst the NFL fans is Lamar Jackson for a guy that, like, what other quarterback has been able to run the way that he has and throw the way he has? Like Mike, people say Mike Vick and all Michael Vick. Yeah, like the running ability matches, but the throwing ability was not there at all compared to what Lamar Jackson has, and he's a two-time MVP. So I feel like if anyone could be in that unicorn category, it should be Lamar Jackson as well.
Yeah, I think it's his postseason success that's holding him back from being considered a top 3, top 2 quarterback in the league. But outside of that, his talent is unmatched. People want to talk about Josh Allen being able to run the ball. Like you said, Lamar Jackson runs the damn football.
Yeah, and let's also not forget this too, where Lamar Jackson's literally a Zay Flowers fumble inside the 1 from going to the Super Bowl too.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
I feel like if that's one of those things where if Josh Allen's going to get these excuses, Lamar Jackson should get the same as well. But I don't know, maybe it's just a narrative thing. Josh Allen was a top 10 pick. It could be that, variety of reasons. Who knows? But
All right. Anything short and sweet about Joe Burrow here at number 3?
I think he's ranked right where he should be ranked.
Right. Okay. Sure. Okay. All right. Next, we got the damn okay bin, which is number 4 is Lamar Jackson, Stafford, and then Justin Herbert. Those 3 guys in that bin.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, I feel like Stafford might be a touch high, but just being like an older guy, I don't want to say he's injury prone, but he's kind of leaning that way too now. But I don't know. I really have no gripes with that bin at all.
No, I don't either.
Okay. Next we got Prodigy,
I think.
Prodigy, yeah. One guy in there, CJ Stroud. I think after that rookie year, that performance, I think he deserves to be one of the top 10 quarterbacks going into this NFL season. I don't have any gripes about that either.
No, I mean, I would pump the brakes on necessarily labeling him a prodigy. And I love CJ Stroud. Not only what he does on the field, but just kind of how he handles himself and the attitude he has off the field. It's not necessarily cocky, but he's very comfortable in his skin. He's going to say what's on his mind. Like, I love his podcast or his shows that he does with Micah Parsons. Like, I love the kid. But we've seen this before where quarterbacks come into the league and put up great numbers and has had a great rookie year. There's always that sophomore slump. So I'd pump the brakes on CJ a little bit, but I'm not going to argue his position here.
Okay. Drew, you have anything to add about CJ?
No, I feel like it's, as of this moment, I would say he's a top 10 guy, prodigy. I mean, it's, one of the most impressive rookie years we've seen in quite some time. So, I think hindsight, maybe we can look back and say, oh, maybe that was a mistake. But, judging for where it is right now, I don't mind the selection for him at all.
Okay. Next, we have awesome NFC contenders. Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff. I mean, I feel like Jalen Hurts probably has one of the most historic QB slides in recent history, where he was, I guess one of known as a top 6 quarterback in the NFL, at least 2 years ago, and just kind of slides down to closer to number 10 than he is, number 5. So, Jared Goff, he's climbing up there, I guess. Dak Prescott, I feel like might be a little too high. What's your guys' opinions on that one?
I'd put Goff at 8 and then slide that list down. And I would even take Jalen Hurts out of the top 10. I'm not a Jalen Hurts fan whatsoever. I've
I'm
always
not
felt
either.
like he's been a product of the roster he's on. He's always had the best offensive line. He's had great weapons. He's had a really good running game, always had a really good defense. So he's kind of been riding the coattails of the rest of his roster. I would drop Jalen Hurts down to like 14.
Okay.
I would drop him all the way down to 14 if you're asking me. I put Jared Goff at 8, and then I'd bump everybody else up. But yeah, no, not a fan of Jalen Hurts at all.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like you said it's just a product of the roster that he has. I know I see on Twitter all the time of Jalen Hurts highlights, and it's just QB sneaks.
Yeah,
Just for touchdowns,
literally.
first downs, whatever it is. So
Great
I
for
don't know. There's really
fantasy.
not much. Yeah, exactly. Next we have wild cards: Trevor Lawrence, Kirk Cousins, Jordan Love, and Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I feel like that's kind of correct, to be honest.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers, we don't know how it's going to play out with the Jets. We've yet to see anything besides the 4 snaps that he's had. Jordan Love, can he build off of what he had in the last 8 games of last year? Kirk Cousins coming off of that torn Achilles, with the Falcons, a decent offense there. Trevor Lawrence hasn't quite lived up to the hype that he's been, drafted to. That generational guy, but I would say that's a pretty correct bin there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I might, as much as I hate to say it, I might put Jordan Love a little higher there, probably above Trevor Lawrence. I hate to say it. I hate to say it, but I mean,
it's facts though. It really is.
Yeah, I'd have to put him probably at 11 and then bump Trevor Lawrence and Kirk down. And I would put Kirk over Trevor Lawrence if it wasn't for him coming off that Achilles injury.
Yeah.
But I can't argue that. That's a good little, tier there.
I would say the only disagreement I would have is I still think Kirk is a top 10 quarterback in this league. I think he is better than Jared Goff. I think he's shown that he can do more with less than Jared Goff can. Jordan Love, he's I could definitely see him as of right now, going up higher, but I could also see him maybe dipping a little bit because the fact that we can't, everyone wants to point to the second half season of Jordan Love, but a lot of people don't ignore the first half of the season too. The guy was awful the first half. I mean, they were pretty much written off. Like no one thought the Packers were even going to make a run and win a playoff game for them. I mean, great run, but I want to see him build off of that even more just because it was just a short stretch of doing well. So I want to see him go higher. So I'm comfortable with the spot that he's at right now. And I would say, honestly, I would maybe Aaron Rodgers. I think that's a good debate to have, especially with the Packer Jet fans on who's, the Packer fans are definitely better long-term, but maybe going into this season, I think that could definitely be a off-season topic that those two fan bases will get into.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely fair. Like I said, I think that's a pretty good bin to have there, for the wild cards. Next is good, but you got some questions about him. Baker Mayfield, number 15, 16, Kyler Murray, Brock Purdy, Tua, and then Geno Smith.
I agree
feel
with
like
that.
coming off of the year that Baker did, I feel like Rodgers and Mayfield should almost switch places. I know I'm a big Baker Mayfield guy, but Brock Purdy I feel like should be a little bit higher. Brock Purdy, one thing about him too is I don't know. I feel like he's one of the bigger question mark quarterbacks in the league because I don't know if he's elite, if he's good, if he's bad. Like I don't know. Like he's consistent, but I don't know. He just is just a wild card to me.
He play. It's like really choppy the way he plays, and it's almost kind of like what we talked about earlier with Jalen Hurts. It may be the product of his roster. Always has a really good defense, has great weapons. Like possibly the best weapons in the league around him with Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel and Ayuk if he stays around. So he just plays really choppy. I agree with the tier he's in to where, I mean, if any quarterback goes to the Super Bowl, you gotta give him some credit. He has something to do with it. But at the end of the day, there's still a lot of question marks around Brock Purdy.
Yeah, he has a really nice car to drive. That's pretty much the analogy everybody says. So
for sure.
Yeah, like for me, I would say like if I had to split some hairs with this tier, I'd probably drop Baker to like 18 and then move the 16 through 18 all up a spot. I just, for me, it's just 1 year of Baker. I don't know if I could say Baker's top 15 until like I said, I want to see him build off of it, where the guys below him have shown they can do it multiple seasons, where Baker's just one season right now. So that's where I'm kind of like a little bit iffy on. But like if I had to pick something, but other than that, I feel like everything's fine with it, with that ranking.
Yeah, sure. That's totally fair. Next, we have the chosen one. There's only one quarterback in here, Caleb Williams, yet to play a snap in the NFL for the Bears, or for any NFL team, honestly. So, Caleb Williams at number 20, above, some guys that, once we get down to this list, have played, are veterans in this league, and he's still somehow above them. What do we think?
If I'm being honest with Caleb Williams, I think he's getting far too much credit.
Yeah.
He didn't have a great year last year at USC, and I'm big on the little things when it comes specifically to the quarterback position. And a lot of people, don't worry about him painting his nails. Don't worry about him crying in his mom's arms on national TV, these little wearing a dress. Like, I'm by no means am I homophobic or anything, but I want my franchise quarterback to have some type of aura. He doesn't have that aura that you want from a franchise quarterback, and those little things matter, believe it or not, when it comes to the quarterback position. But outside of that, I don't think he's like this next coming of Patrick Mahomes that some people kind of consider him being, because he plays like Patrick Mahomes. Doesn't mean he's going to be as good as Patrick Mahomes. Doesn't mean he's the chosen one. And if you were to ask me about the rookie quarterbacks, none of these rookie quarterbacks should be rated above any of the guys that have done anything remotely legitimate in this league. So Caleb Williams, if you were to ask me, he should be right there along with Justin Fields, if not below.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't done anything in the league for him to be the chosen one or him to be top 20 yet.
Yeah. Right. And like I say, with Caleb's Heisman year, I do think he would have won the Heisman, but I do think a lot of people forget this too, that Hendon Hooker out of Tennessee was right below, kind of starting to traject in that spot. Because remember too that, they hadn't played Vanderbilt yet. So that, if he has like a 4 or 5 touchdown game with only 2 picks, I think it becomes a debate. And I do think he would have gotten that in that Josh Heupel offense with Jalen Hyatt. And, they had Jalen Wright and a bunch of other guys. Jabari Small was a good backup there too. So, a lot of people do forget that with Caleb, or, I would have, like, if I was voting, I still would have voted Caleb, but I do think it would have been more of a debate, more like last year where Jaden Daniels, I thought, would have won the Heisman, but I do think like Bo Nix and Michael Penix had a seat at the table like Hendon Hooker would have had. So to say that he's this, to kind of go off of your point, Sean, with the dress thing too, and because again, that's the whole debate with them. For me, it's my issue isn't really with the dress per se. It's more the fact that, your quarterback is supposed to be one that unites a locker room. And with everything being so political, everything's so politicized, there's going to be somebody in that Bears locker room who I feel will have an issue. They're not going to publicly say it, but there's going to be somebody who does have an issue. And, and that's why, when the whole Carl Nassib thing came out, that was such a big deal, and why this whole stigma of, these kinds of guys coming out, it's because football is such a macho sport. And, I do feel like at some point there's going to be somebody that's going to have an issue with it, and it might break out. It may not, who knows, but that's just me, theorizing who, I don't know for sure anybody who does, but, that's just my fear with that, is just because I feel like I want my quarterback to unite a locker room more than somebody who might cause a rift between teammates, and that could cause issues on the field as well.
I think we can all agree, when you draft a franchise quarterback, especially their rookie year, where they got to take in the entire playbook, they got to get familiar with their teammates, with the coaching staff, just being in the building. I don't want my rookie franchise quarterback in Paris for Fashion Week. I want him in the building. I want him learning the playbook. I want him around his teammates. You shouldn't be out doing fashion shows and doing. Look, Joe Burrow is solidified in the league. He's been to a Super Bowl. He's successful. He can go do that. But when you're a
Mhm.
rookie quarterback and you're considered the franchise of this team, don't go to Paris Fashion Week in the middle of your off season when you're supposed to be picking up the playbook. It's not a good look for me personally. If JJ McCarthy would have done that, which he even talked about, look, I'm staying in build. I'm not taking any trips. I may go golfing a couple times, but I'm going to stay in-house. I'm going to get familiar with this playbook. I'm going to take in as much as I possibly can. I'm going to be a sponge. I'm a rookie quarterback. I have a lot to learn. That's what you want to hear and see from your rookie franchise quarterback. What Caleb Williams is doing and the way he's going about things, sure, you're having fun. You're a young kid. Go do your thing. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to you being a franchise quarterback for a franchise that hasn't had a quarterback throw for more than 4,000 yards ever,
Crazy.
you're relied on to be that guy. And when you're going to Paris Fashion Week and in the middle of your off season, when you're supposed to be a sponge and learning all these things at the training facility, it just doesn't sit right with me.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing too, like for me, the kind of like I guess my final point is they're kind of like crowning this guy before he's even played a snap. And I just want to go through some offensive rookie of the years of guys who were deemed generational prospects, pick number 1. So going from last year, there hasn't been a guy who was the first quarterback taken number 1 overall that won rookie of the year. The only guy that's done it is Sam Bradford, and that was in 2010. So, but I do want to go over the guys who he was competing with. There was only 2 other guys that got a vote, and that was Mike Williams from the Bucks and Marquise Pouncey, a center. So that kind of tells you all you really need to know about it. And his stat line was 3,500 yards at 18 touchdowns, 15 picks. So it's not like he lit the world on fire. So even the great Andrew Luck, that generational prospect, he didn't even win Rookie of the Year. So the fact that he's getting crowned before playing a snap is something I want to say. Pause the break. Let's put a step on the brakes a little bit and let's actually see him play first before we just start crowning. Because Andrew Luck had a really good roster too. So when the Colts picked number 1, I mean, it was just 1-2 years prior to Peyton Manning's. It was like 3 years prior to the Super Bowl team that they made. So the Super Bowl appearance team. So like they had a loaded roster too, and he didn't even win it. So like I said, I just want to see. That's why they play the games, and hopefully we'll see. The Vikings fan speaking in me is he doesn't win it, but let's just see how these guys play and kind of just go from there before we just start crowning this guy as the next great one.
Sure.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to use some mouthwash with all the Bears talk that we've been having the past 5-10 minutes here. But we'll fly through the next couple here. We got Glory Days, Russell Wilson, Derek Carr. I mean, they're kind of past their primes per se.
Yeah.
Now we have crap or get off the toilet. Daniel Jones, Deshaun Watson, Justin Fields. I feel like the Deshaun Watson, I don't know what you want to call it. 24, just the football player. Is he really below Daniel Jones of all quarterbacks?
No.
I don't think he is. I don't know. He played pretty well on the Browns last year before he got hurt. So I don't know. I think they would have been a competitive playoff team in the playoffs last year. But
I think that has a lot to do with his off the field stuff, to where people it's just a bad taste in people's mouth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, my tier with him would be similar to Russell Wilson's, just because he was a guy that was this great player, great quarterback, and goes to a new team. He hasn't put that magic together where he had with the previous team. So I think that's kind of where Russ and Watson should be at least by each other. You could pick who you want between those 2 guys for me, but I think they should just be neck and neck right with each other.
Okay. Next we got ready rookies. Will Levis, Michael Penix, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy at number 30.
First of all, Will Levis isn't a rookie. So
I know. What the heck, Chris? What are you doing?
Yeah, come on, Chris.
I don't know. Michael Penix, I don't know if he's necessarily ready to start. I mean, he'll have to be, because he'll be 28 by the time he actually does start. If Kirk plays out his contract, what are we doing here?
Yeah. My big thing is it might be splitting hairs because it is one spot, but Bo Nix is not better than JJ McCarthy as an NFL prospect. You
I
know,
don't see.
statistically, box score wise, yeah, Bo Nix was better, but like as a prospect, JJ McCarthy was so much better than Bo Nix for the fact that McCarthy, when the time came where it had to be those big games, McCarthy would still find a way through. And you know, I know the McCarthy keyboard warriors are going to say, "Oh, he was carried by Blake Corum," but for McCarthy, he was the guy that tied the game in the Rose Bowl to send that game into overtime. And in overtime, it only took like 2 plays and they scored. So I credit more for JJ McCarthy for even pretty much ending the Saban reign, essentially the dynasty. So for me, anyone that can end that reign and dynasty in college football gains my respect ultimately from that. And for Bo Nix, there's so many times where he played Washington in Penix and they would just lose. Like those big games, you had to have them game. Pac-12 championship, they lose. Regular season game, they lose. And I believe they lost the year prior. And one of them was definitely in their home stadium because I know they alternate every year. But one of them was home and you still lose. You know, for me, I don't think you can lose 3 times to the same team in a row and then say that you're better than the guy that ended the Saban dynasty.
Yeah. I think that's the Sean Payton love affair that a lot of these national media pundits have. And I don't get it. And I don't want to go on this big Sean Payton rant or anything, but
That's for another episode.
Sean Payton was blessed with a Hall of Fame quarterback in Drew Brees, and that's where he got his entire success in this league was from Drew Brees. So I don't get the whole Bo Nix. Oh, Bo Nix is going to be a perfect fit with Sean Payton. Well, you guys were kind of saying the same thing about Russell Wilson being in this perfect fit with Sean Payton, and Sean Payton's going to get Russell Wilson right. So I agree with you there. Bo Nix shouldn't be above JJ McCarthy. But I mean, it's the only thing I really got to argue is Will Levis isn't a rookie. Why is he in the rookie section?
Yeah.
Like that's your first mistake or first big mistake, Chris Sims. Will Levis shouldn't be in the rookie section.
And here, kind of building off your point, you said it's the Sean Payton love affair, but you know, it's not like KOC is a slouch in himself either. I mean, how many yards did Nick Mullins throw on this great Lions team? You know, everyone's crowning already, and you know, threw for like 800 yards and like 8 touchdowns. Granted, he threw a bunch of picks, but still, I mean, to have that sort of production,
We don't talk about
to still have that sort of production is still impressive in itself. And the way that they had the Joshua Dobbs reign, so you know, it's not like he's any slouch in his own. And like, where is he really going to throw to in Denver? Is it like Cortland Sutton, the only guy? I mean, they have Greg Dulcich, but he's not a TJ Hawkinson. Sutton's not a Justin Jefferson. I couldn't even tell you who the number 2 guy is in Denver. And the running back, Javonte Williams, are thinking about cutting. So I don't see it. I don't see it with the Denver situation being better. So
sure.
But,
yeah. I don't get it either. I guess JJ McCarthy will just have to prove everybody wrong. You know, just simple as that. So, no, I'll fly through the next 4 baskets here, and then we can kind of debate after that. For sale, we got Ryan Tannehill. I guess he's better than everybody else that I'm going to mention here. Next bin is the young and the reckless, Anthony Richardson. Sam Darnold isn't even a top 32 quarterback, I guess, you know, with JJ McCarthy being better. Bryce Young, Jameis Winston. Throwbacks, we have Jacoby Brissett and Joe Flacco. And then backup plus, Kenny Pickett, Gardner Minshew, and Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah, I can somewhat agree with that.
I get why Sam Darnold's not top 32, just because Ryan Tannehill, I think, is a guy that is a little bit better statistically over the years, and Sam Darnold really hasn't proven that yet, so I get it. Anthony Richardson is, you know, he put up some good numbers until his injury, so I get why he wouldn't be top 32. But the one that really gets me more than anything is Gardner Minshew at 39. And the season that he had, he pretty much carried the Colts to the playoff, like, you know, to a near playoff berth.
Yeah.
And I believe he made the Pro Bowl too. So I know that's something that people like to poke fun at. But, you know, I say what you want about the Pro Bowl, but you don't have a 39th ranked quarterback in the NFL who makes a Pro Bowl. Like, that's just not happening. So, but that's like the only one like I would say is, you know, if I had to pick on something, it would be the Gardner Minshew one.
I mean, I'll make it as simple as this. Would you rather have Gardner Minshew starting week 1 or Russell Wilson?
Probably Gardner Minshew.
Yeah.
There you go. They're almost 20 spots different.
Yeah, and that's
Crazy.
just saying to me, you know, and Grant, I think it's more for the fact that he's going that high for the player that Russ was, where Minshew's only had it for 1 year. And, I
Yeah.
mean, you could argue too for the Jacksonville year. I think it was his rookie year, second year in the league. He wasn't that bad in Jacksonville. And I know some people are kind of up in arms, like, Gardner
Minshew
Minshew's playing
mania.
good. Yeah,
Minshew mania.
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, people are kind of up in arms. They're like, you didn't play that bad. Kind of similar to what the Bears had with Fields to Caleb. Right now. So, I think he definitely should be higher for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Agreed.
Well, it sounds like we didn't really have too many gripes with that list. It was pretty, I guess, spot on. A couple changes here and there, but Chris Sims, I guess, bravo to you. Except you got Will Levis, not a rookie, but I don't know what he meant by that. Maybe he thinks I don't know. I don't even want to try to explain. But we'll get into our next topic here, our last topic of the night. Surprise roster cuts. It got me thinking today. I was thinking, who could be a surprise roster cut? Once preseason comes around, after training camp, who's going to be a surprise roster cut? And Drew, I want to start with you because I'm curious. Just name one guy. We'll go one guy each, and then probably some honorable mentions as well. So yeah, Drew, we'll start with you.
My surprise roster cut is going to be a Caleb Evans, the corner. He was benched in the Detroit game, was a week 16. He hasn't really. He's been at his replacement level, I would say, at best. And honestly, Andrew Booth didn't play so bad to end the year. He played a lot of passing snaps, didn't really get a lot of targets his way. So, granted, it could be maybe got some safety help, but we'll have to watch the film for that. But but the fact that he got benched in favor of Andrew Booth, I do think that does say something is gonna happen. It could happen, and he is kind of nearing the end of his rookie contract too. So, it is something where it's not where he can just be cut and they lose money. With him being a 4th round pick, he's easily replaceable at that point, especially with how many corners they've signed and just drafting Kyrie Jackson too. So I think that's my number one surprise roster cut going into this mini camp preseason era. Football.
Yeah, to add to that too, there's been recent reports too about Lewis Cine and Andrew Booth both being like uphill climbs to even make the roster. So the fact that Andrew Booth was even given playing time, I guess, if that makes sense, last year to where now he's an uphill climb to make the roster, kind of raises some eyebrows in a way too. But I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about Andrew Booth. Like, I don't know if he's good, if he's bad. He's just a very inconsistent player. But I guess we'll see when training camp rolls around, preseason. What Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell want to do with him. So
and I don't really think he's a special teams guy really much either. Like, I don't really see him on there either. So I don't think there's a spot for him there. So I think that's another kind of additional point to that. So
sure, Sean, what do you have over there?
My surprise cut is Jalen Naylor. I know there's a lot of fans of his out there because he had 1 or 2 big games and a couple meaningless games, which I compare him to Oli Udoh. Oli Udoh had this great, amazing game against the Bears in Week 17 against Khalil Mack, where the Bears already checked out. They didn't care about that game. So Jalen Naylor, I think he had a good game against the Packers, and I think it was the Bears, but it was towards the end of the season or when the game was already over. We're down like 42-17 or something like that against the Packers, and he caught a touchdown pass and a couple other passes deep downfield. But the biggest thing with him is just the health thing. Your best ability is your availability, and Jalen Naylor has not been available. There's been opportunities for him. It's not like if he was healthy, he would have had the opportunity to get on the field, but he just wasn't. Brandon Powell has obviously passed him up. I like the way Powell plays. And then also Trent Sherfield has looked really good this offseason. It seems like he's J.J. McCarthy's kind of favorite target on that second group. So Sherfield, I think, makes it over him. Obviously, Powell. And then a surprise guy that I think makes the actual 53-man roster this year over Jalen Naylor is Tristan Jackson. I love Tristan Jackson. I'm a big Tristan Jackson guy. I think he makes a 53-man roster, and that leaves Jalen Naylor out of the scenario.
Okay. Drew, did you have a surprise person to make the roster?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Jalen Williams. I feel like he's a guy that would be a good special teams player, and there's been some steam about him improving this offseason and doing well. I think he was good enough to even play with the twos, kind of playing opposite of like Mekhi Blackman a little bit, but not permanently. But he's kind of in that fringe 2-3 range where he's kind of shifting between both. But I definitely could see him being a guy that could make a surprise roster entry as well.
So kind of like a Najee Thompson from last year.
Kind of,
essentially.
yeah, a little bit, yeah. And I like I said, I think that this is a guy who I feel like is gonna get like some special teams recognition. I don't know if it would be somewhere he gets defensive recognition by any means, but more of that special teams ability to tackle guys in the open field and that sort of stuff. So
Sure. All right. I guess that leaves me. And what surprise cuts without a actual surprise cut? And I feel I put this out on Twitter earlier today is CJ Ham. I don't know why, but I know the Vikings coaching staff loves CJ Ham. He's part of the run game. Aaron Jones is going to have a lot of success behind him too, and all that. But I don't know. I feel like how many teams really use a fullback, effectively? The 49ers and who
Ravens,
else?
the Ravens,
Like
Patrick.
there's maybe 3 teams, including the Vikings, that use a fullback effectively in their pass game, run game, whatever it is. And honestly, the 49ers and Ravens use it more in their pass game than they do their run game. And see, like fans love CJ Ham, the coaching staff loves CJ Ham, but I feel like in a passing league, I don't know. CJ Ham's a big guy, so I don't know. I feel like he would be my surprise cut, and we can get to some honorable mentions here too. But I don't know. My gut just tells me that CJ Ham is just going to be one of those surprise players that gets cut. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I think if it was any other team, I think he would be cut. I think he means a lot more to this locker room and this community than what a lot of people don't realize. And
I agree.
I spoke to this. I spoke about this with Dustin Baker, I think last week on his show. I think we're gonna start using CJ Ham more in like a H-back type of role, like a Klein Saucer type of guy, to where we've seen it. We've seen that CJ Ham could catch. We saw it against Baltimore on that wheel route up the sidelines where he looked like Justin Jefferson catching that ball. But we also seen him out of the backfield catching those short little passes and breaking tackles and getting some yards, some yak. So I think we're gonna see him more in kind of like a H-back type of tight end role almost. So I think he actually sticks around, not just because what he does on the field, but also what he means to this community and this franchise.
Yeah, I do want to add real quick too before Drew. I don't necessarily condone, cutting CJ Ham. I love CJ Ham myself. I hope he sticks around, but I just think that it's a roster cut. And then I don't know what else I was going to add. Maybe it'll come back to me. But Drew, I'll let you take the floor with this one.
I think I'm going to be on the side of Sean here. I don't know. I don't see him getting cut just simply for the fact of, he just recently got that extension too. And I believe his contract expires after the 2025 season ends. And I feel like if he were to get cut, it would be then, because I'm looking at it right now. I think if he gets cut, you're saving about, maybe $2.8 million, give or take. So I feel like if he does get cut, and I think maybe that might be more of a next year surprise cut for me more than this year, just because there's less, just the dead money aspect. It may not seem like a lot, but $700K could sign you some UDFA who could be the difference of, an Ivan Pace. So, that's why I feel like there's kind of more that, I feel like that'd be more 2025, but but for my honorable mention guy, I think Nick Mullins is definitely on the chopping block this upcoming season with how many quarterbacks they're carrying. And again, it comes down to financials where Jaron Hall isn't really making that much money, and I feel like the odds of them going down to the third quarterback are slim to none. Like, how often do teams go down to their third quarterback in back-to-back seasons? So me playing the odds here, I think with Mullins having such low dead money and him making $2.2 million, you're looking at like $1.9 million, which is a pretty sizable, cap number for a possible third. I mean, not possible. He would be the third string quarterback if he does make the roster over Jaron Hall. And I don't know how I feel comfortable paying my third stringer that much money for a guy that would never really even play, most likely.
He could
So,
even be a trade candidate as well.
Very true.
yeah. And if he is a trade candidate, the money would definitely be the same. But like I said, if there's nobody that really even wants him, I think then you kind of, for me, I feel like you kind of have to cut the bait with that. And say, I feel like the money for him outweighs more than Jaron Hall's, lack of play versus Green Bay, who, I don't know if it's, the Atlanta game looked pretty promising. So I don't know. I feel like one game is really hard to judge on a guy and just say you're out of the building. So, Nick Mullins is a guy. I mean, they already have a veteran in the building too, and Sam Darnold. So I don't know how I'd feel about having two guys like that, maybe. But if he does make the roster, it would just be because you have McCarthy in the building and that's your guy. But that's the only reason why I feel like he would stay.
Look how long they've kept Kellen Mond around too. What was it, like 2 years? 2 years too long?
2, 3 years, something like that. I think it was 3 years. I think they cut him after that preseason game in the third season. So yeah.
So, Sean, anything to add?
Nah, I don't really have any other surprise cuts because I don't think Lewis Cine would be considered a surprise. I don't think Andrew Booth would necessarily be considered a surprise, and I think it all depends on Andrew Booth's health. Because Drew mentioned it earlier, when he was on the field, he played good, but his problem is he can't get on the field. Kind of the same with Jalen Naylor. So, I mean, that would be my other surprise cut, maybe, but I don't know how much of a surprise that would be.
Sure. Awesome.
And
anything else, Drew, for you?
The question I'm kind of wondering is, I floated it a couple of times, and Dustin, you don't think that he does, but does Lewis Cine have any trade value for being a former first-round pick? Like, you can even get a 7th-round pick for some late guy, flyer, former first-rounder. And because if you do that, you could definitely save some money on your cap where you don't have to take a loss. So I don't know if that's even a possibility. Like, if you're a team that needs maybe a third safety and you just want to take a flyer on a 7th-round pick and just see what he has. Because, and for me, I feel like the change of going from Dontel to Flores is not ideal for him with the way he plays the game. So is there any trade value of maybe getting a 7th out of it at worst?
I think the problem with that is he doesn't have any tape.
But that could also be his greatest benefit too, is he doesn't have any tape.
Yeah, you would have Kwesi in the front office would have to do one hell of a sell job to do it, because when you're trading guys for 7th-round picks, at that point, teams are just gonna wait till he gets cut. Like they're not gonna. I know it's a 7th-round pick or some. There may be some team, if it is a guy that there's multiple teams that are after, that they say, okay, well, if this guy does get cut, there's gonna be a bunch of teams after him. When we really need him, they'll give up a 7th-round pick. But I think it would be hard to do that. You would have to sell the hell out of Lewis Cine for you to get.
I think the only appetizing thing to that would be that he was a former first-round pick. Like that's the only thing appetizing to it.
So I'm just kind of, like I said, I'm looking at like spot or over the cap right now. So if they have him as a trade candidate, you're only paying like basically the vet minimum, and it might be like $800,000 on your cap. Where if you have him next year and you trade for him, you'll have that 4th year. You cut him, you're not even losing any money on your cap. You just wipe your hands clean. Say, you know what, you don't have any money. It's just bygones be bygones. You can go and see if there's a practice squad spot for you on another team. So I think that might be the selling point for Kwesi would be, is like, we physically can't trade him. Even in a post-June trade, it still leaves you at a loss, and you'd have to eat some sort of money out of it. But it's not a lot, but you might have to eat, you might have a loss of $1.4 million on your cap. And it's nickel and diming, but sometimes those nickel and dimes could be the difference of signing a key guy in the next free agency to not getting the guy that you want. So, I feel like I feel like every every penny and nickel counts when it comes to this sort of thing, especially with how much cap we're going to have rolling over next year.
For sure.
For sure. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for hopping on today. We got some awesome Viking topics here. We went through a whole list of quarterbacks as well in the NFL, had a Mount Rushmore of guys. And yeah, I appreciate you guys hopping on. If you guys do like this podcast as well, make sure you guys go subscribe, 612 Vikings on YouTube. Follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, 612 Vikings. And we will see you guys in the next episode. Skol Vikes.
Peace.